Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel. It's Short on Time Saturday, part one, or just Short on Time, part one. We decided, hey, it's been a week. We haven't put anything out there. But the NFL Sunday schedule, slate, whatever you call it in your household, hasn't happened yet. So we're going to give you the first half of the next episode tonight, and we're going to update you with the NFL part as we go along into next week. Maybe it'll be something we do to kind of break up the show into more tolerable, less duration pieces. But you never know unless you try. That being said, we do have some NFL news, so we're going to jump right into that first. I know that we have on our sheet NHL and NBA mostly, but we have some Le'Veon Bell news, obviously, over the course of the week. We had some Dez Bryant news. So let's start with the Dez Bryant news. Out of nowhere, out of the clouds, it seemed, he signs with the Saints, what was it, last Wednesday. He had like a visit on Tuesday. You see there are clips out on the internet. He was stretching with the team. He had been signed. And by Friday, he had torn his ACL already. It was a move that, the Saints, they've gone wide receiver by committee for so long now. They've generated talent, Michael Thomas, Brandon Cooks, Marcus Colston for so long that for me personally, like I get that they went out and tried to make their team better and Dez Bryant was on the market, but it's a move that of all teams I didn't see the Saints really making it because in the past they've kind of rolled with what they had in-house every year.
But, I mean, I don't think, it was a 1 year, it's the rest of the year deal, so I don't see it as a problem.
No, not a problem. From a transaction standpoint in itself, I was a little bit surprised to happen.
But, okay, so I wasn't really surprised. I would have been more surprised if it was longer than the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. No, I can see that.
But as a 1 year deal, they're just saying, hey, we'll give you a shot. Right? Because usually they like to grow their talent, right?
Right.
So
I think most teams do.
Yeah, so signing a 1 year deal isn't surprising for me because that's we like to grow our talent and you need to just. Are you back?
Yeah. What happened there?
You're anyway, so it's just saying we'll give you a shot to be part of our talent, right? And your video went out, so whatever, doesn't matter.
All right, so let's just take a second for whoever listens to this in audio form later. We've decided over the past couple of weeks that we were going to start doing live streaming podcasts. So if you listen to it later, video cutout on this one. So when we take the audio and put it in later and give you the audio, just roll with the punches for a few seconds there. Just a little disclaimer because it's either that or we go back to it's not worth it. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
A little adversity never hurt anybody.
I mean, yeah, so I don't think it's a bad deal nor a surprising one. I would only have been surprised if they signed him for just 2 years or more.
Yeah, and I don't think that...
And that's not a possibility.
Yeah, I don't think financially they had the funds to do that. Most teams probably wouldn't have had the funds. At least contenders wouldn't have the cap space to sign a player like what Dez Bryant would have been asking
NFL has
for
no
for
cap.
More than... Well, it's a soft cap, but you still have to stay under it.
It's a soft cap means you can go over it. I didn't even think they had a cap, but if it's a soft cap, it doesn't really matter.
Well, they restructure contracts in a way that, you can convert it to signing bonuses, and then technically it's still, under the cap because the signing bonuses don't count towards the cap. They count towards, incentives in the contract.
Really? So wait, signing bonuses don't have a cap hit? That's BS.
At least as far as I know.
That's some
'Cause
BS.
I've seen Steelers transactions for years where it's like Roethlisberger converted his uh his salary for this year to be like now it's 35% of that, and the rest of it was converted to a signing bonus. If it didn't have a cap hit, then that makes more sense than if it had a cap hit, then it's like, well, then why are they doing that? What would be the point of doing that?
Okay, well, apparently NFL salary cap is $177.2 million.
Right?
Um, holy crap, dude, that's still like a lot.
Yeah, I mean it's a game change.
All right.
But like you can't restructure your contract until like you've put a year in or something, I think. Like
Yeah, but I still think if that is the case, like if that is the case, then it's like completely wrong because
yeah,
you're.
but I mean but that's where like free agency still remains difficult because you can't restructure a contract on a dude that like you have this if you're going to sign for 4 years, like that first year is still like it has the cap hit until they put the service in and can restructure it.
Okay.
I don't know. It's one of those weird things that like obviously front office knows it way better than the fans do, but it's not exactly kept secret that this happens.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
But we're getting off on a tangent here. Fact of the matter is, Des Bryant tore his Achilles in his like second practice with the team, and obviously, thoughts and prayers are out to him. Hope that he gets better. You never want to see that, especially because this was a big chance for him, an opportunity with a contender to play with Drew Brees as a quarterback. It would have been a huge opportunity for him. And I'm pretty sure the Cowboys were on the schedule, like they were going to play in Dallas. And
Yep.
so, like, he would have gotten his revenge game too. So now all that's kind of
Out the window.
out the window, at least for this year. So you can't help but feel for him. But now with tonight's news, this came out not long ago, that Adam Schefter reported that it's unlikely that Le'Veon Bell of the Steelers is going to sign his franchise tag at all, meaning that by not signing it by week 11 or this coming Tuesday, which will have been the deadline, he won't be a free agent by year's end unless I'm missing something, which is really weird because with the running back shelf life being what it is, him being, I think, 27 now, he'll have to wait another year to hit free agency, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of
I don't know how
weird.
that works. So yeah.
I don't know. As far as I know, or as far as I've read up on it, that's the play. But it's kind of weird that a running back because running backs past 30 years old don't really exist in today's NFL. So at least not in the starting role. So for him to be voluntarily waiting another year to play, it's just kind of weird to me. I don't know what's going on there. And the only thing I can think of is you see what happened with Des Bryant, and it's like you don't want to get hurt in your last 6 games of the season after holding out for 10 weeks and then not get the money that you held out trying to get.
Yeah, no, but I mean, Des Bryant's thing is more probable to a lack of conditioning. So we're saying that Le'Veon Bell is also going to have a lack of conditioning.
Yeah, that's where I think that one kind of coincides with the other, but it's still big news.
I still think that neither of them should have been lacking in their conditioning anyway. But I mean, things happen. Whatever.
Right, but it's like you can't replicate the drills where there's the contact drills because those guys who can provide those, like you can go to any high school field and get your conditioning reps in, but the fact of the matter is when it comes to getting the reps where there's contact, there's just not those NFL guys who are in the age of NFL players to go out and give you those reps to get your body in game shape out there. They're in the NFL. Like there's recently retired guys who you've got to step on them for a reason because they're recently retired. And there's guys who were cut who obviously weren't the NFL caliber, for a reason. But if you're looking for today's NFL competition, you're not going to get that out in a public, high school field in Miami.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah.
So, I mean, conditioning. So that's the other thing is Bell. Obviously, he held out, and he can. Anyone can say that they're in the best conditioning or in the best body shape of their life, stuff like that. You can't be game ready, and we saw that. You can't just come in and be game ready. We saw with Des Bryant, the height being away from the game. As much as you try to replicate the experience, you're not in that experience until you're back on a team and you are in that world again.
Fair enough.
I don't know. You have any take or anything on this?
Not really. I mean, I don't think if I were either of them, I probably wouldn't have signed because you get hurt, you're basically losing your income, right? In a sense, right? The more you get hurt, especially the older you get, right? The time you have shortens. So if you're on a 1-year deal and you get hurt because you started in the middle of the season, that's on you, and your value goes down to everybody else even more than say it would have if you just didn't play.
In the short term, you still get paid because you're under
but I'm talking long term.
But that's what I'm trying to say is when you say you're not getting paid, you're talking in the difference between short term and long term. Because in the long term, you're sitting on the couch like you were when you were holding out trying to get paid.
Yeah, except this time it's involuntary.
Yeah, exactly.
And you already have a short shelf life as an athlete. Yeah. There are not many athletes that get to Tom Brady age.
Oh, yeah, no.
And so,
Tom Brady got to his position because his mobility isn't relied on in his position as much as
his decision making.
Right, and as much as other positions. Punters and kickers can last. Vinatieri is 45 and still do it. It's because the position doesn't really require him to do much with his body.
Right. It more for quarterbacks and stuff is decision making, and he can still do it, and he still has his arm. It's not like it's regressed so much that it's unusable.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, but that's my opinion on that side. If I'm holding out, why would I? Especially because Des Bryant's basically a conditioning issue. If you're Le'Veon Bell and you're not sure you can take the middle of the season, because everybody else, right? They had training camp, they had preseason to get ready and used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't. You have that week and the game.
Yeah.
If you start.
And I'd say that Des Bryant was more at a disadvantage than Le'Veon Bell is because Des Bryant was cut from the Cowboys and he didn't he had meetings with the Browns. He had meetings with several teams about potentially signing. I don't think, obviously Des Bryant didn't anticipate that he was going to be away from a team or from the game as long as he was. Whereas Le'Veon Bell has voluntarily
stayed out.
This. Yeah. So that's where it's different in that regard too. Because Des Bryant may have been conditioning or sticking with his workouts that would have, for the short term, thinking that he was going to be on a team 3 weeks after he was cut from the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
And after months go by and you're getting into November, it's kind of at what point are you okay, well, it's not happening this year.
Yeah, fair enough.
And we were probably getting close to that time because once you hit December, teams aren't really signing guys unless there's someone who got hurt.
Yeah, but also isn't there a time when the rosters have to lock for the playoffs, or is that just the week before?
I I mean, I've seen the Steelers when Bell got hurt before playoff games, and they signed like Ben Tate
from their practice squad or something.
No, Ben Tate was an NFL veteran.
Okay.
And so, like, they signed him from free agency like the week before the playoff game.
Okay.
Because to have depth, it's weird. The NFL doesn't do roster management like other teams.
Okay.
Which is weird because they don't have like a minor league system, but
they do. They have the practice squad.
Yeah, but that's still technically on. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. Well, for not wanting to not talking about NFL, we talked about NFL for quite a bit.
Yeah, it had to be done. This is the most relevant and on time we've been with that kind of information. But anyway,
let's move to the sports that we actually want to talk about, right? So
yeah.
Why don't we start with the NHL?
I would want to.
I don't know. I think we should just go quick highlights. Like both of our teams are doing terribly, so
yeah. Nothing like a 5-game losing streak to bring you from first place in the division all the way down to second to last. If you're a Penguins fan like myself, and if you're a Devils fan, you can join me right in that neighborhood because you're rounding out the bottom of the Metro.
Yeah, started 4-0, now are 6-7-1. Good job, guys.
Yep, 6-5-3 here. It's a certain kind of feeling to be below the Rangers.
Yeah.
And the Islanders, too.
But the Islanders have been surprisingly good.
Yeah, but it's still the Islanders.
But seriously, they've been surprisingly good. Like, it's not like they're not the Islanders of old where they would you like roll over them or they'd be middle of the pack and you expect yourselves to be higher.
Right. They're Barry Trotz Islanders now.
And he's made a difference. Like I went to the
Islanders. Yeah, absolutely.
I went and watched a live game, Islanders Devils, and you couldn't see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's been the difference for the Devils? What's caused them to drop?
We don't have solid scoring aside from our first line, and we can't find the people to round out our bottom six.
That's a bad problem.
Yeah, we've gone through 4 or 5 AHLers so far. We even sent our our 6th overall pick from a couple of years ago down to Binghamton.
Yeah,
he played the full season in the NHL last year.
Damn. Yeah, that's not good.
So yeah, there's a lot of problems, but hey, probably the biggest.
In terms of scoring, you guys in Edmonton, one line does it all.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think we're as bad as Edmonton in that retrospect because the other lines do show up, but the problem is they are all the same, right? So like the Zajac line will score in troves in one game and then be dormant for that line will have 4 goals in one game, but then won't score or even have an assist in the next 5.
Okay, they kind of rotate in terms of one team does it for each game, and it's they're just satisfied with their performance and will ride out. They're that person who's in your office who's really satisfied with how their 1 week went and will ride out the rest of the month, just being hey, look what I did that 1 week.
Right. So and it's really weird though because I mean, we have games where our first line they consistently put up points.
Mm-hmm.
Our other lines one game will be the third line that put up 3 goals. The next game, maybe none of them do it. The next game, the second and fourth line put up a lot of goals. The next game, only the first line is still the only first line is still the only consistent one across all these games.
It's not a good look, man.
So I don't know.
Not a good look.
Yeah, but the other side of the Eastern Conference, Florida's rounding out the bottom. They're doing worse than the both of us, so we're okay. We're not last in the East.
Yeah, that's always a good thing to be in.
But there is a problem when you are when you have less points than the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, there is. You gotta adjust your mic. You can hear you breathing.
Okay.
Is either breathing or like the cord moving on your shirt or something, but you could hear it.
Okay. Well.
Gotta give the listeners what they want.
Yeah, and then I mean, to round out the East, right? The Tampa Bay Lightning and Toronto Maple Leafs are at the top of the Atlantic, and Columbus,
followed by the Sabres.
The Columbus and the Flyers are at the top of the Metro. Like, what world do we live in?
The world where a slow week gets it done, because, like, I mean, our teams were near the top at 15. Like, there's only been like a 4-point difference between where the Penguins are now and the top of the division. And
it's still so early in the season.
The Jackets and the Flyers made up that ground, but like it can all change in that quickly of a span.
Yeah, but it's also so early in the season that there hasn't really been a shot for anybody to break away, because nobody's been that dominant like a Tampa Bay.
Right. That's the difference in the Metro. The Metro is decided right now between first and last is a 6-point difference, whereas in the Atlantic, it's a 14-point difference between first and last.
But also, Florida has only 12 games played. They're 4 behind basically everybody else in that division.
And that's fine. But just for the point, just in terms of talking points, like that does make a difference. And like, okay, if we're going to discount Florida, Detroit has played 16 games. They're still 11 points behind number one in that division.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying that 14 is a little iffy of a number, because you would have to assume they could get at least 1 or 2 points in those 4 games that they have to make up.
Right. But even in the Western Conference, like the Predators are number one in the Central with 26 points, and the Blackhawks are last with 15 points. So again, you have an 11 point.
Yeah, 11-point difference. That is pulling away. I agree there, but I'm just for Florida's sake, they're not the full cause of
in 3 divisions, there's an 11. 3 of the 4 divisions, there's an 11-point difference somewhere in the standings.
Yep.
And then in the Metro, it's 6. So that's a big difference in terms of how competitive the teams in the Metro are.
Or just that they all are inconsistent inside.
Could very well be, to be honest with you. Could very well be.
At least the inconsistent part, because, Penguins, you guys, they can score.
We need better goaltending.
They can, that's a different story, but they have lines that can consistently score, but then they also have a devil's problem of where none of them show up sometime.
Yeah.
So, you get, a string of games where all of your lines will have spread scoring. For all of those games, each of those games individually, all of your lines will have spread scoring. And then you'll get a string of games where nobody can, the puck and the net just don't go together.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Makes it great to be a fan.
Yeah, so, I mean, just to round out the rest of the NHL, highlights on the standings, right? Nashville is pretty dominant in their performance right now, and they have a pretty substantial lead for only 16 games played over the middle of their pack, because
no overtime losses definitely helps.
Yeah, they have 13 wins, and they're all regulation or overtime wins.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even if they ever get to a tiebreaker, that's amazing. You literally didn't go to a shootout once.
Yeah, and they have the goaltending depth in theory.
Pekka Rinne is doing amazing, but we'll get to stats later.
And they still have Saros, right?
Yeah, UC Saros.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. They have the depth to even if it gets to shootouts,
But Saros has been a little shaky from what I saw, but he's still pretty good.
It's a small sample size for a backup so far in the year.
I think he's played. No, Rinne went down for a little bit, I think.
Okay. Well, forgive me for assuming.
Rinne only has 9 of their wins, I think.
Okay. Well, forgive me for assuming.
Actually, I don't even think Renee has 9 of their wins. Maybe 7.
Okay. Can we? You don't have to keep backtracking. I've already admitted.
No, I'm just trying to get the number right. But yeah, so Nashville's doing really well, and then Minnesota, I think they're a little surprising to me. I didn't expect them to be the upper half of this. I expected them to be more middle for this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota is your definition of a middle of the road team.
Yeah, so I think that's just a little surprising. And then the Blackhawks, they fired their coach, and they're at the bottom of the standings. So yeah,
makes sense.
And then for the Pacific, Vancouver is actually leading that division. That is absolutely surprising. But Elias Pettersson, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's been phenomenal. Yeah, after he came back from his
hit.
Yeah, and he's still been lighting it up.
Yeah, Vancouver's quietly made moves that a team that's up and coming does. They had the Sedins leave. All the older pieces left over the course of 5 years. They made trades. They, flipped the roster basically. And, we just never really heard of anything. Then they got Bo Horvat out there, and they've got some pieces that just kind of their fan base probably thought that they were really good, and they probably knew it a lot better than the casual NHL fan. But these pieces have planned out well, and it leads to the up-and-coming team kind of tag being put on them. It may not be one of those years where they make the playoffs, but it's one of those years where you see what you have.
Yeah. Other surprise for there is, Edmonton recovered nicely from their pretty abysmal start. They were 0-3 or something. And Vegas, I guess, is acting like everybody originally predicted them to do last season. And Los Angeles rounds them out because I guess they just can't win for some reason.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But you got some news and notes for us on the NHL.
Right. So Brock Besser on Vancouver, he's out. He was placed on IR, but they say the injury will be reevaluated in a week, and it's not that serious.
What was the injury?
Some muscle in his leg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a strain or something like that.
I think. Yeah. And then Lucic from Edmonton was fined $10,000 after the phone hearing for his roughing penalty earlier in this week. I just think I don't think it was suspension worthy, but it was just dumb. There was absolutely no reason to even be hitting the guy. And then good news for Nashville, even though they're at the top of their standings, Arvidsson has been activated off IR. So that's their top line back. So if they've been doing this good and Arvidsson's supposed to be on their top line.
Imagine what the extra depth will bring.
Exactly. Rask from Boston was granted a leave of absence for personal matters. So, just sucks. I hope everything's okay. But that just shows you there's more than just a game, right? So they're still human and they got things.
Tim Thomas is still on that team, right?
I don't know. I don't know. No, wait, what the? No, are you?
I don't know. I still picture him being on the team.
Isn't he he's had to have retired by now?
Well, he was on the Panthers for 3 years before he retired. That was such a great, authentic reaction on your part. You actually believed it.
No way. It's that makes zero sense.
No, you're just a big Tim Thomas fan. I get it.
Anyway, now that we're done talking about Tim Thomas, the Red Wings have a 6-game curly fry streak. I know you were looking at that one from last time we did news and notes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If there's one thing that I look for in my NHL headlines, is curly fries. So
um,
tell me the story behind this one.
what?
So what brings about the curly fries again?
3 goals.
Like, okay, 3 goals to get curly fries. Yeah, today's
It used to be a
NHL.
hat trick, but they changed it because the Red Wings were so bad. But apparently, they've been
Yeah,
so good since that happened.
yeah. That's they gotta change that. They gotta change that rule. You gotta
Hey.
sneak that in during the All-Star break when nobody's paying attention to the local games, and just be like, "Oh, now it's 5 goals." You can't do it now in the middle of the streak. You're gonna make people mad.
Yeah, let the streak end.
People are gonna go to Arby's and be like, "Yo, where's my what happened?" That's where it's at, right? Arby's.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so in other news, the Sens bad press continues. They had that Uber thing happen, right? So,
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with it.
I mean, I just so it was in Arizona, and you're allowed to like record something as record
As the
things
Uber
going on
driver, yeah,
if you
because if it goes to court or
disclose it
something like
for
that.
security reasons, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then releasing it because you were like whining about the tip or something, that's just dumb.
Yeah. No, that was stupid. But my thing where I don't have a problem with it is I watched a bit of the video. I didn't watch the whole thing. It didn't really seem like it was like, yeah, being upset with the coach happens every team. Being upset with the front office, that happens with at least one player on every team. And it's just, we don't always have an Uber video or an interview where it's publicly said to know about it.
Oh no,
So
it happens, yes, but the fact that it was publicly aired is a problem in that
it
way.
is, but it's not like it was any secret that the Senators front office was doing
I
weird
mean,
stuff.
but that's not the only bad thing that's happened this week.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean,
so also was it yesterday? This was reported that one of the reporters from TSN was interviewing Melnick, and he apparently denied some allegations about withholding bonuses from his employees. And then once the cameras were turned off, he told the reporter, "I'm going to bury you."
that's an interesting
Like,
attitude.
what?
Yeah, that's something where you keep the tape recorder in the pocket for that one. It's
What?
like,
Like, seriously,
no,
what the heck?
yeah, that's one where the video camera, the red light goes off and we're all clear, but you still have a little backup going because yeah, your employees have a right to know about that.
Yeah, and yeah, but the only other news and note thing I have is Arizona is the king of shorthanded goals. They scored 2 yesterday, I think, like
Mm-hmm.
back to back on the same penalty kill.
Yeah.
Um,
I do want to say one more thing about the Uber video before you get too far about it.
sure.
Like you said that the Uber driver was in Arizona, like that sort of the game
Yeah.
or where they were. But how funny was it that the driver was so he was so not drawn into like being a part of the conversation, despite the fact that he was in the car with 4 professional athletes.
He didn't. It
like
didn't
so
seem like
quiet.
he realized who they were or what.
Well, no. When you have 4 people that say we play for the city of Ottawa, I know they didn't say the Senators, but they said Ottawa. Okay, they're clearly athletes good enough to cross country lines, and this dude was like, "Yeah, I gotta."
Yeah, so I
Like,
mean, I don't. That's whatever in my opinion.
he
But
certainly wasn't very active in the conversation, and for him to be upset about a tip, I mean, it's Uber. Like, you still got to be like how social you are and how relatable you are to your clients. brings in what a tip can be sometimes.
Yeah.
So my feeling is it's sort of on him too.
Okay.
He didn't play the game.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, I mean, that's it
Take a
for
lift next time.
news and notes, though, right? Arizona king
Yeah.
of shorthanded. That was the
King
last
of the
one.
short-handed and king of the short tips.
Yeah. So you want to go into stats?
Yeah. So you got Mikko Rantanen. He's got 24 points to lead it. We're just gonna run through these quick because it's our short night. Pecorine is averaging 1.55 goals against per game.
And a save percentage of just under 950.
Yep,
At the
just
top
under
of both.
95% of his. Yep. He's not on top of the wins list, as you alluded to earlier. That's Frederick Anderson. He's got 9 for Toronto.
And,
plus minus, Philip Forsberg's got a plus 12. And in terms of goals, Ovechkin and Patrick Kane, along with Timo Meyer and David Pastrnak, are tied with 12 at first.
Yeah, so amendment is Vasilevsky is tied with Anderson for 9 wins. And Sissons and Forsberg are tied in plus minus, but plus minus is a really relative stat, so it doesn't really show the whole story.
And let's just throw in this. Marc-Andre Fleury has been in net for all 7 wins for the Golden Knights.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get better production out of your backup.
I mean, I think you got to play better in front of your starter also.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because he literally plays out of his mind, and they still lose.
Yep.
So
good point.
Yeah. But yeah, that's our quick rundown for the NHL. So NBA talk it is, and I'll let you take the lead.
All right, so we're just going to read through, like, if the playoffs stupid, we're going to do the stupid style. If the playoffs started today in the East, you have the Raptors, who are leading the Atlantic at number 1 seed. The Central is being led by the Bucks. They're the 2 seed at 9-3. By the way, the Raptors are 12-1.
And we're back. Sorry for that. That was
yeah. So
my internet crashed for a second there.
Where did we leave off on the crash?
So we were just talking about the 76ers being the 3rd seed.
Okay, so the Pacers are 8-5. They're the 4th seed. The Celtics, 5th seed at 7-5. Pistons are 6-5. They're the 6th seed. Notice we haven't touched the Southeast division yet in the NBA because only now at the 7th seed, which is the Charlotte Hornets at 6-6, do the Southeast division enter the picture. And then the 8th seed would be the Brooklyn Nets. They're 6-6. So right then and there, we see the difference in the East this year with no LeBron and no powerhouse Cavs team in the picture.
The Cavs right now are 1-10.
Yeah, okay, but the East, it's
actually
definitely weaker.
But I don't mind that. It's actually competitive for all the other teams, and it's not like I know what's going to happen. So if I'm a basketball fan,
I don't mind
this is so much better. Like, I can actually watch games because I don't know who's going to be in the finals aside from Golden State.
And looking at the 6th, 7th, and 8th seeded teams, you got the Pistons, the Hornets, and the Nets. You got 3 spots where competition, you have a chance, one of those 3 teams, and as the season unfolds more, we'll see who in the top 5 is actually fortifying themselves and who's actually a weaker one that just kind of is in the middle of the pack. One of those teams may make the second round. You might see a sprinkle of a surprise factor.
But let's be honest here, the Nets are not. I do not think they're making the playoffs.
No, I'm not saying that they would. I'm just saying you have a chance of seeing a little bit of an upset in the first round of the playoffs this year.
Okay. Yeah, but again, as a person who kind of stopped following basketball to an extent when it was Golden State and Cleveland just going to the finals every year. Like, there's actually some parity in the league, albeit just one conference, that it's actually interesting to watch now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as we get to the West, I don't see that parity, and we'll go through that, right?
Absolutely. And we're about to go through that. So in the West, I mean, your number one seed is as expected as it could get. It's the Warriors because, reasons. They're 10-2. You do have a little bit of a surprise. The Blazers are your 2 seed. They're 9-3. And the Nuggets are your 3 seed at 9-3. The Nuggets beat the Warriors earlier this year. They've put together quietly a team that mostly has been built in-house. They signed Isaiah Thomas to a prove-it contract of like $700,000. I have Paul Millsap there, who is a veteran leader. So those moves, not the most headline-worthy moves, but they've panned out pretty well so far through the first 12 games. Then the number 4 team is the Thunder. They're 7-4. Number 5 is the Spurs. They're 6-4. This is where it starts to get a little mushed together and a little bit where like it's not as separated. 6th seed is the Grizzlies, Grizzlies should be tanking for better players in all honesty. I mean, they've got decent players, Marc Gasol. If they can get Chandler Parsons to be what he was in Houston in like 2013, then their best bet is to tank and do something else with their roster, in my opinion. The 7th seed is the Sacramento Kings. That probably won't last. They're building off of youth, which is fine, but Sacramento is Sacramento, and last time that they competed for anything, they had Chris Webber and like Peja Stojakovic on the roster. So those were like when Shaq was on the Lakers. So like you can't think that that's gonna last. The 8th seed is the Clippers. I mean,
right,
they could probably stay in that bottom playoff picture because of the trades they made in the past few years. They acquired, starting caliber players, right, but not necessarily the all-star players.
I just want to make a small observation, right? We have, right now, the way it's looking is 2 of the divisions on each conference have clear teams that are good, right?
Yeah.
But then the one division, the South, both of the South divisions in both conferences, they have teams that are okay and then teams that are bad. No team that's standing out. Like in the East, you have like the Raptors 12-1 and Bucks are 9-3, right? And in the West,
I will say this though, in the Southeast, you're probably likely to stay in that like these all kind of suck kind of range. But in the Southwest, you have the Pelicans and the Rockets.
Yeah.
So I think as time goes on, they'll fortify itself a little bit more. But
none of the teams are starting good. That's all I'm saying, right? So they're all still either bunched or bad.
Right. From that standpoint, yes. I will say as time goes on, the Southeast could stay crappy.
Like I was just making that observation that in the other 2 divisions in both conferences, you have teams that are starting good, whereas in both of those, none of the teams seem to be able to get off the ground and make something.
Yeah, I mean, 2 divisions where 6 teams gets you first place.
Yeah,
the Southwest, and the Southeast. Whereas, like in the Atlantic, 6 wins get you 4th place.
Yep.
Just that. But we do have a little bit of transaction news. So this happened earlier today, Saturday, November 10th. Jimmy Butler was traded from the Timberwolves to the Sixers for Dario Saric, Robert Covington, Jared Bayless, and a 2022 second-round pick. So
before we talk about what anybody said about it. I want your thoughts.
Okay. So I think it's a stupid trade. I
Okay.
mean, there's a clear-cut winner and a clear-cut loser. I think
I
that
agree.
if you're the Sixers, you want it.
Mhm.
If you're the Timberwolves, I'm not exactly sure what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because the coach of the Timberwolves, Tom Thibodeau, said before the season, he said to the media, he sat down with Butler and he said, like, hey, you may not. He wanted to get traded to either the Clippers, the Nets, or the Knicks because all three of them could give him a max deal when he's a free agent this coming summer.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Shelf that, put on the table, because Thibodeau said you may not get traded to one of those teams because we're going to need something of value in return. They want to be competitive in the West. They're fine with moving him, but it has to be for the right price.
But
So
Saric, Covington, and Bayless
So
are
Saric,
not the right price.
I'll say this. Saric is a guy who came from overseas. He was like a pick from the Sixers that, he'll be a good NBA player. He's not going to be an all-star. He's not going to make an all-NBA team. He's going to be a solid, lineup guy who just is, he'll get you X amount of points and X amount of, every other stat a night. And he'll consistently do that. But Jared Bayless is a veteran who has played on a bunch of teams now. Robert Covington is a guy who he shoots threes well, but he's not really – you don't need him if you've got Andrew Wiggins. They play the same position. I don't really see why they wanted Covington. So of the three players you get back, Sarge really is the only one that provides anything because it's him or Taj Gibson who's on the decline. So, yeah, it makes sense that you get Sarge. But before the season started, they wanted several number one picks for Jimmy Butler. They didn't get a number one pick at all, and they didn't really get any, bona fide, all-star to be even, in return.
Yeah.
So I'm not really understanding. If you say that you wanted a package back that'll allow you to be competitive and also allow you to not lose steps, you certainly didn't do it if you're the Timberwolves. Yeah. You settled.
And also, just my opinion, second-round picks are worthless, especially in the current format of their draft, because
unless the second-round pick is the 31st pick, meaning it's the first pick outside of the first round.
Top 10. If you're up to 40, but after 40-ish, then they all start to blend together, in my opinion. So the difference between picking at 45 and getting an unsigned free agent who would be number 61 or whatever it is, it's not that big. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't see worth in second-round picks. If I'm looking at this trade, I'm just throwing that second-round pick out because it actually doesn't even add any value to this trade, in my opinion, anyway.
Well, not only that, it's a second-round pick 4 years from now.
Yeah, why? Why was this even included?
These guys are freshmen in high school right now. You're trading for someone who's going to go one and done and have, probably an okay NCAA March Madness tournament run, or some dude who wins the NIT tournament. And I'm going to put a second-round pick in him. But right now, these guys are that guy's probably 14 years old. Mm-hmm. You're really banking on the fact that that's going to make up for Jimmy Butler in his prime? There's no way. Mm-hmm. And like I said, Sarge is the best player that the Timberwolves got back. And I'm curious to see how old he is because he's one of those players that stayed overseas after he was drafted. Mm-hmm. So let's see. He is 24 years old. So he's only 4 years younger than Butler.
Yeah, that's actually not that bad.
It's not that bad, and it's a cheaper contract. But if you're going to take on cheaper contracts, you probably could have gotten more.
Fair enough.
Could have gotten more. I mean, point guard is an area where the Timberwolves have had issues. They don't really have. I mean, they've got Derrick Rose, but can you really trust Derrick Rose not to get hurt? I mean, he had a 50-point game earlier this year, but can you trust that it's going to stay like that? Can you trust that he's going to produce like that? And you got like a Jeff Teague that's on the decline. What I don't know. Why don't you like take a guy like T.J. McConnell, backup point guard for the Sixers, who, you know, in terms of his per stats, which is like, you know, if he played 48 minutes, his splits would be like he'd average like a double-double. He'd get you not a lot of points, but he'd get you assists. You know, why not take on that instead of like all these older guys? For me, it was a stupid trade. Like because like they were talking to the Heat, and like the Heat weren't going to give them multiple first-round picks. And that's where those trades like kind of fell apart before the season started. But they probably would have gotten a better package than what Philadelphia said. And what, you know, Philadelphia won it because it's like it's if it fits their budget for this year, it gives them that they still have that extra window to compete outside of this year, even if Butler leaves. But they didn't lose that. They won't lose that much even if Butler does leave. They still have Fultz. Mm-hmm. If he pans out to be, you know, good, they still have Simmons. They still have Embiid. They still have J.J. Redick. Of all the guys that Minnesota could have said, this guy is a must in the trade, they took like all the guys that Philadelphia would have said, like, okay, you know, they could have gotten a lot more out of Philadelphia's roster.
Yeah. So but that's the only big thing that's happened in basketball so far.
Yeah.
So you want to go over stat leaders, right?
Yeah.
No surprise that Steph Curry's the leader in points per game.
Yeah, averaging a solid 29.5 points per game, but Joel Embiid for a center, 28.8 points per game, behind him.
Right behind him.
Which is, you know, for a center to be hanging around with a Splash Brother.
Yep.
Take notice on that.
Yeah, in assists, you have Lowry from Toronto.
Yeah, you got Kyle Lowry. He's got 11.3 assists per game. And the next person is 8.8. So, you know, for assists, that's quite a margin.
Yeah.
Field goal percentage is Rudy Gobert, your 7-foot center for the Jazz. He's putting up about 72% of his shots. He's putting them in the net. On the defensive side, Andre Drummond is getting you 16 rebounds per game. Hassan Whiteside nipping at him at the number 2 spot. He's got 15.7 rebounds per game.
Mm-hmm.
Hassan will get you more blocks, though. He's averaging 3.5 blocks per game. Anthony Davis and JaVale McGee also averaging just
above 3.
Yeah. And on the steals, these steals numbers will go down as the season goes on.
Yeah.
They have to, because these are super inflated numbers.
Yeah.
But everybody in the top 5 has more than 2.4 steals per game.
Actually, rounding out the top 5 is the guy who just got traded.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler with 2.4.
And his numbers are inflated too, because he sat out a few games because, you know, for quote unquote rest this year, not for the fact that he didn't get along with Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns out there.
Yep.
But Paul George averaging 2.82 steals per game. That's highly above average and they'll all go down. Chris Paul 2.5, John Wall, James Harden hovering around 2.4. Also, those numbers eventually will go down.
Right.
The element of surprise will go away. Guys will start getting into their groove and make more fundamental passing plays, stuff like that.
Yeah, all right. I think
got to protect the rock.
Yeah. But that rounds out
that's our stat sheet.
Yeah, stat sheet, and our short stream for Saturday. We'll be back on Monday.
We'll be back either on Monday or Wednesday. We'll be talking the Sunday slate of football, maybe even some Monday night, even if we go Wednesday, or we'll just, depending on when we shoot it on Monday, we'll go live recap as it goes. But that's pretty much what we got for tonight. We gave you some of the transactions. This was all very last minute. I hit up Sean today. It was like, want to record today? He said, sure. We got to it tonight. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll see if we'll bring it to you more often.